Oh, you can't hear us either.
Should use Discord. It's way better.
You see what the culture that revolves around that.
What?
The culture that revolves
There's no
around
culture with Discord.
There you go. There we go.
Hey, what's up, man?
So nothing much. Can't complain. This is Frank. He goes to the UNC, or not the UNC. Not mine. No.
UNC.
No, he goes to Winthrop.
I go to the Winthrop Rasher Christi chapter.
Okay. With the Palouse.
Yep.
Yes. So are you home now, or are you still out west?
Yeah, we're still in Utah. We're coming home. We are coming back. We're leaving Friday. It'll be like a 3-day drive.
Yeah.
And we'll go, and then we'll get there like Sunday night.
Okay.
We'll be there for a couple weeks, and then we'll head back out here. Be back for the beginning, like the 6th of January.
Are you living there now, or?
Yeah, we're here for. I mean, we're here for the plan is we're here for the year. At least that's the plan right now.
Okay, that makes sense. Because I didn't see you at the conference, and of course I'm like just because like we don't always connect. If we connect on the phone, it's not like we're always talking about where you're at, of course. But like I know for a while it's been talked about with like Lexi and Grant that you were looking at moving there. So I was just wondering.
Yeah, no, that's like the stuff that we talked about. Even potentially doing some of the other stuff. Some of the people coming in. The coffee shop and their stuff out here. We talked about that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So hey, Ross. I see Ross. I see a black screen, and I see Alex
there.
Alex Nelly. I don't know. Can you hear me? Can you hear us? Alex is muted.
Hey, Ross.
I think Ross is in his car.
That's very dangerous.
He doesn't have a microphone next to his
Yeah. But he's also driving, so that might be dangerous. Don't crash, Ross. There's the laugh. Aaron, by the way, before I forget, I got the references. They should be here the next day or two.
Okay, sweet. Okay, Alex, they can hear us. They're at a McDonald's. They turn off the mic.
That's impressive. Like
now they're moving to the trunk of a car.
Yeah. It must be like a Pathfinder or something. You never know.
You're gonna stream it from the trunk.
Yeah. Go to the Escalade. Okay.
What's up with you, Wesley?
Hey guys, nothing much. Hanging out. 8 o'clock over here, so it's kind of late, but whatever.
Kind of late.
I'm usually watching TV with my wife by now. Just put my daughter down. TV time.
Calling it a day.
Are you a director?
I am an assistant director. Yes.
Oh, which campus?
In Lincoln, Nebraska.
Oh, so you know Adam.
He's the regional manager.
That's right.
Gotcha. Because I mean, since Frank and I are from Rock Hills, so we know Adam.
Cool.
I went to Adam's class out in Germany last year.
Yeah.
So I've had some good time with him. He's a great
He's
guy.
my boss.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. That's right.
Yep. We work. I work right under him.
Nice.
And so Wesley and Ben are hopefully both going to come. Is he going to make this tonight? Do you know? Or
I don't know. I haven't asked him.
Yeah. Okay. But y'all will both be representing in Utah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Adam
won't be able to come, will he?
Yeah.
All right.
Now tell me, Ryan, who's what's your friend's name? The guy.
This guy?
Frank.
Yeah.
Frank. Yeah. Frank, are you interested in coming, or are you just trying to learn more about it, or?
I'm trying to raise money for it right now.
Okay. One of the things that when we'll wait till some other people come in and stuff, but I'll go over this. But one of the things that we're trying to do, so we don't have anything guaranteed, is seeing if we can potentially raise some funds to for students to have some matching funds available.
Yeah.
So it's not definite, but it's something that we're working on to see if we have people that are supporters of Ratio, either nationally or whatever, individually, or even some people out here that would be able to help offset some of it. If that is a major issue for you, the cost, then make sure that we talk, and I'll do everything I can to help you raise the support and get it. I think you can raise it. It's just a matter of there's some stuff that I have that I can send to y'all. I have a letter that Glenn from Maven, which I'll talk about. Maven's the group that we're partnering with, Brett Kunkel's group. He gave me. I have a video that he gave me. I can give you this stuff so that you guys can.
I'm sorry, you're going to have to deal with it, Nelly.
Hey.
I'm also on the video camera. Oh, hi, hello.
Hey.
How are you?
Good. Where are y'all in the trunk of a car?
Yeah, we are in the trunk of a car. Yeah. Yeah, we our school is closed, and he lives in High Point, which is like 30 minutes from me, and we both want to go on the trip. So we were like, let's watch the meeting together, and we went to McDonald's, but it was too loud. So yeah.
Now you're in the trunk of a vehicle.
Yeah.
What campus are you guys with?
We're from Greensboro, so UNCG. Ross is our advisor. Yeah.
Ross is on. He's there in the dark. I think he's muted or something. Or no, he's not on. He's not in anymore. Oh,
no, his phone is just resting in the car.
So he was there.
Mac is
here.
Now. Mac is here, and so is Ross. Yeah.
Hi, Mac. I don't know you.
Mac is from our campus too.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't.
And what year are you guys?
He's in your car.
Mac, you're not. You don't have a microphone next to your name, so you might be. You might just have to click on something if you want. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Now, if you just want to talk, you can unmute yourself. Good. All right. Well, we'll give a little bit more time for people to come. So in the meantime, we'll just go around and everyone say 5. We'll do 6 lies and a truth about everybody, and some other awkward greetings that make it super awkward. Yeah. Mac likes the awkward greetings. I make him live.
It's just a picture of him like.
Did you guys were y'all at the meeting that we did with Ross?
Oh, we were upstairs. He wasn't there, but I was. Yeah.
Okay.
He jumped onto the Utah train like pretty recently.
Okay.
That's a good train to be on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So are you definitely on the train, or are you still like running alongside the train, deciding if you're going to grab onto it?
I'm like mid-air jumping on the train.
You're the mid-jump.
Might grab it, might not.
In other words, he hasn't put a deposit down.
Okay. Yeah, we can talk. We'll talk about that.
I would also be mid-air.
We can talk about that, and as far as the deposit and all that, and how that will work.
Oh, look, it's Macintosh. Hi, Mac.
Hello.
Hi, Mac.
Hi.
You got rid of your picture. Now we see you live.
Indeed. Here I am.
So you're at UNCG too, right?
Right now I'm at my apartment, but yes, I go to UNCG.
Is it on the campus of UNCG?
Right now I'm at my apartment.
It is not.
I mean, that's a more normal place than where we are. So.
Shh, be quiet. They can hear you.
Where are you all?
In the back trunk of Nellie's car.
So yeah, I saw Ross was on here a minute ago, and then
I think
there he is. Oh, there he is. He's still. He was. He had some kind of. He said he had some event or something that was doing. So he was.
It looks like his camera's on.
Yeah, he was sitting in the car, and then he got out of the car.
He said he had a dress rehearsal. Is he in a play or something, or is he?
Carolyn's in the call too. Carolyn, can you hear us?
Her mic's off.
Yeah, she's muted.
Yeah.
So good. We got lots of UNCG students. We need more students from other places around the country.
I'm sorry, I tried.
How many other schools are participating, or is it just like UNCG?
Well, that's what we're trying to figure out. We're trying to get more. So right now, I guess one of the issues is spring break.
Yeah.
Y'all are there's not a whole lot of schools that have spring break that first week of March. So I think that's going to limit us a little bit. But there were three other Ratio schools where Ratios have chapters that have the spring break the same week. But so far we haven't gotten any of them to sign up. But that's Grove City College, Western Michigan, and Florida Gulf Coast University. So if you guys know anybody there, then we'll recruit you to recruit them to get signed up.
UNCC is the same way. The guy who was going to do the emails for us just wasn't able to kind of follow through for a while. So he got sick, and he was finishing up a semester. So Josh was really awesome about letting the students lead it. But he just sent out the email like yesterday about it. So he put out that the meeting's going to be recorded. So hopefully we'll get some recruiting and have some interest when the semester picks up. But we'll see.
Yeah, I'm recording the meeting. So then if we want to, I'll post it on the Ratio Christi directors page and stuff. So if you have anybody that would want to see it, I'm sure somehow, I don't know how this technology stuff works, but somehow I can probably get this to different people if they want to see a recording of it.
That would be good, because I was going to be taking notes for a guy named Chris that is possibly interested in coming.
Are you talking about Bennett?
But you don't want to take notes?
If I don't have to take notes, I will not.
Well, if you guarantee us you're coming, then we'll let you slide on the note taking.
I can give you like a 95% on that.
Hey, 95, we'll take that. That's good. Yeah. I see there's another student that made it. See that guy, Tom Jaskey? He's a freshman at UNC Wilmington.
You're muted.
You're muted. He doesn't understand how technology works either.
Unmute yourself, Tom.
Hello, fellow kids.
Hello,
Hey,
Tom.
what?
Wow.
Wow, that's great.
I liked it better dark.
Yeah, whatever. I really don't care. Oh, is there more?
Hi, Tom. Good to see you.
Dude, I could totally live in this car. I could totally make it work.
Thanks for letting us know.
Oh, sorry, that wasn't meant for everybody.
You're fine.
Tom, if you're wondering, they're living in a car down by the river in a van. And so
But specifically in the trunk of the van.
in the trunk of a van down by the river.
Oh, oh, wow. He brought that one out.
He brought that one out.
Oh, my God.
All right, well, let's, does anybody know of anybody else that's coming? Or we can get started if I know, there's some other people that said they were, but if not, we can always, like I said, it's being recorded. All right, so let me just, so thanks everybody for coming. And those of you who are watching this on the replay, a pox upon your household because you should have been here live, but that's all right. As long as you come to the trip, we'll make it work out. So my name is Aaron Marshall. For those of you that don't know me, I'm probably happy for some of you. And when you do get to know me, you'll be happy that there was a stage in your life before you met me. But so I was the chapter director in Wilmington, North Carolina at UNC Wilmington for 7 years. And so Tom Jaskey, who's up there with his glasses on, was also working, and Wesley as well, is also with us at UNC Wilmington. We had 5 of us on staff, and there he is sipping his coffee. 5 of us on staff in Wilmington. The chapter has just, God has blessed it. It's been really great. But I've also moved into a role nationally with Ratio where I do all the hiring for Ratio nationally. So if you're ever interested in coming on board with Ratio and want to do this, either as a supported missionary or as a chapter director, then you'll actually come through the hiring process. In fact, Ryan is going through that right now, so he can come officially on staff at UNC Charlotte. And so in that capacity, about 2 years ago, I had a chance to come out here to Utah with Corey Miller. So Corey Miller is the president of Ratio Christi, and he actually grew up LDS here in Salt Lake City. And so a couple years ago, he had just come out with a book that he wrote with 3 other scholars talking about their journey out of the LDS religion, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They do not want you to refer to them as Mormons anymore. We could talk about that if you're interested, but their president, their prophet, actually was pretty adamant about this recently, that we don't want to be called Mormons anymore. We want to be called the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saint, or LDS for short, because there's a huge push, and if y'all don't know much about LDS or Mormonism, we can talk a little bit about that if you want, but there's a huge push amongst the LDS to be known as Christian. And so I was talking to a girl just the other day, and she said, look, Jesus Christ is in our name, so of course we're Christian. And so, so Corey had written a book along with Lynn Wilder. If you're interested in a really, really, really good book talking about Mormonism and just their journey out of it, her book, Unveiling Grace, is a book that we recommend to everybody. It's a really good read. Lynn Wilder. And so she was actually a professor at BYU, And God actually used a pastor in her son's life. He was on a Mormon mission in Florida, actually a pastor who ended up moving to Wilmington, and we knew in North Carolina. But he actually led or started a journey that led Micah to faith, and their whole family came to faith. And so Corey had written a book with her about about 4 scholars talking about their journey out of Mormonism. And I got a chance to come out here to help do some hiring. We had nobody out here in Utah at the time. And most people don't realize, but Utah is the least evangelical state in the whole country. So most people think it's up in the Northeast. Most people think it's, Vermont or, New York. But most people think that LDS, Mormons, are Christians. And so this state is overwhelmingly LDS. And so actually the state of Utah is less than, depending on, I've seen 5%, I've seen 3%, less than 5 or 3% evangelical Christian. So it's actually the least evangelical Christian state in the whole country. And so when we were out here, I really just that was the first time I'd ever even been out here. I mean, it's beautiful. The state is gorgeous. I mean, some of the most amazing scenery you'll ever see in the whole country, really, maybe even the whole world, is out here. From the mountains down to the desert, southern Utah, Zion National Park and Arches are just amazingly beautiful. But the state is, I believe, is being captured by, but certainly by a false religion, but even by Satan. And so it is. It's hard to be out here because the state is so overwhelmingly non-Christian. But I also think it's, if not the most important, it's certainly one of the most important mission fields in the country. And so when we were out here, I got a chance to meet some LDS. I got a chance to have some conversations, went down to Temple Square, which we'll talk about here in a minute, and where the giant temple is. When they first moved out, when Brigham Young led the Mormons out here in the 1800s, they built the temple right in the middle of Salt Lake City. And so we got to see all that, got to have some conversations, got a chance to go to BYU down in Provo, Utah. Provo, Utah is in Utah County, so it's the least evangelical county in the country, in the least evangelical state in the country. Less than 0.5% Christian in Utah County, where Provo is. And so it's just, overwhelmingly non-Christian, very different than being in the South, as, many of you, I think everyone here is, except for, maybe Wesley wouldn't count as being in Nebraska, but, the Bible Belt. And so had been doing Ratio Christi there for 7 years. And God just kept putting Utah certainly on my heart, and I think just a love for the LDS people, and just, that have been caught in a false worldview. So they think that they're Christian, they think they understand the gospel, and yet they're living a false gospel. It's a works-based gospel. Their doctrine says that grace comes into effect after everything that you can do. So you do everything you can possibly do to be good, and then God will add a little bit of grace. Heavenly Father will add a little bit of grace on top. And that's an impossible, they call it the impossible gospel, because it is. And so I became aware of a lot of the statistics of people living out here in Utah. So per capita, so Utah is only about 2 million people, but per capita, one of the highest suicide rates for young people, one of the highest, again, per capita usage of depression medicine, and pornography use is huge out here. Everyone's pretending they're playing religion. Actually, interesting, one of the highest per capita plastic surgery places in the country. So everyone, again, it's all about outward veneer. Inside, they're like whitewashed tombs because they don't know the gospel. And so after lots of consideration and prayer, our family decided to move out here in beginning of August. And the plan right now is that we'll just be out here for a year to try to help get Ratio Christi's chapter started in the state of Utah. And so there's one other guy right now that we hired, Tom Kaler, who's up at Weber State, just north of Salt Lake City, who was doing Ratio Christi here in Utah. And so right now it's just him and I. But by God's grace, we have a chapter. He's got a chapter started at the University of Utah this fall that I was able to head up. And next semester, we already have 2 chapters that are going to get started at Utah State, which is up in the north end of the state, almost into Idaho, and then at Utah Valley University, which is in Orem, which is right beside Provo, again, the least evangelical county in the least evangelical state in the whole country. And so we'll have 4 chapters started that are, that's amazing. And this is all within the last year that all this is happening. And so when we came out here in August, one of the things that we did was we brought a team from UNCW. So Tom Jaskey was able to come out here with Kenza Kirkman, who's another one of our staff members, and Grant Forrester at UNCW. And we brought a team of like 15, I think, out here for a week. And it was a time of, we got to do some evangelism, and we'll talk about that with this. We'll be same thing we'll do on this trip down at Temple Square. Got a chance to just hear from evangelicals here in the community in Utah. Also got a chance to dialogue with LDS and with Mormons. And at the end, I'll let Tom speak on this for a minute. But I just think that it affected everybody. It affected I think it's still affecting their chapter even now, because evangelism just took off on in that chapter after they came back from Utah. And so again, I'll let Tom speak on that in a minute. But we had this idea. We said, what we need to do, because I never thought about Utah. I never thought at all about coming out to Utah, except for just to go to Zion National Park or go skiing because it's beautiful. But never thought about ministry out here until I was out here with Corey. And so we just realized that people don't realize until you're out here just how oppressive and just how dark it is to just. I believe that Mormonism is satanic, and we can maybe talk about that if you're interested. But just what a dark place it is. But at the same time, how amazing and how loving the LDS people are, and they're trapped in a false gospel. And so we thought, what if we could put together a program to try to get students and Ratio leaders out here to experience being out here, with the goal being that by God's grace, some of you would be interested in even moving out here and helping what we're getting started out here, or even interning with churches in the summer. And we're working on building all these programs. And so that's where the Ratio Christi Applied Apologetics Intensive came out of. And so we already had one group, so Ross's group from UNCG, that was interested in coming out here for their spring break, which is March 1st through 7th, which is why that's when we're doing it this year, March 1st through 7th. And so we were going to do the same program we had done with the UNCW chapter. But in September, I had a chance to meet with Brett Kunkel. So Brett Kunkel, if y'all know him, he used to work with Stand to Reason Ministries with Greg Kokel. If you haven't read Tactics, then a pox upon your household, because everyone should be reading Tactics if you're in Ratio Christi. But Greg Kokel's book Tactics, the 10th anniversary edition, just came out a couple weeks ago. And so Brett was doing a lot of their high school and college stuff for Stand to Reason. And then about 2 years ago, he broke off and started his own ministry. It's called Maven. And they had been doing these kind of immersive experiences for years, both with Stand to Reason and now with Maven. So if you don't know, he's done apologetics immersive experiences at Berkeley, where he takes youth groups up to Berkeley, California. And they've done these, what they call them, the biblical immersive experiences in Salt Lake City. They're also doing a worldview immersive experience. And actually, they're getting ready to start a spiritual disciplines immersive experience where they're going to walk the Camino in Spain and go through Richard Foster's book, Celebration of Disciplines. So I'm excited. I'm interested in doing that one. So maybe we can do that in the future. But I got a chance. They had brought a group of about 60 people. Did you have a question? Yeah, you need.
Yeah, his name's Brett. What?
Brett Kunkel.
Brett Kunkel. Thank you.
Yeah. So Greg Kokel and Brett Kunkel work together in the ministry.
Brett
so,
Kunkel.
Yeah, say that 10 times fast.
Greg?
Yeah. Yeah, Brett Kunkel.
Spell his last name?
Kunkle.
Yeah, Brett is Greg's uncle.
Just like Tom is my father. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah. So Brett. So 2 years ago, he started his own ministry called Maven, and they continue to do these experiences. So in September, they brought a group from not Engage Impact 360. If any of y'all know there, it's a group out of in Georgia. They do semester apologetics kind of experiences, semester long, and they do some other things as well. Well, there was a group that was doing I think it's a year-long apologetics experience, the gap year program, and they brought 60 of them out here to Utah for one of these immersive experiences. So I got a chance to kind of just sit in with them, and they went to BYU to the cafeteria, and they just went out in 2s and 3s and had discussions with BYU students. And it was going great till one of the former missionaries that overheard some of the discussions got really heated and actually told on us. And before we were going to get escorted out, we kind of got up and left because BYU is a private campus and they kind of do what they want. But I got a chance to talk with Brett about what if we could do this with Ratio, because we've got tons of students and we're doing all kinds of really good apologetic stuff. I mean, obviously that's, what Ratio does, but what is the point of everything that we're doing with apologetics? We're not just doing apologetics so that we can be really smart like Tom Jassy, right? We're not just the whole reason we're doing apologetics is so we can answer people's honest questions they have about the gospel so that we can actually share the gospel with people. And so what they're teaching, what these intensive experiences do is they challenge you to take the information that we're learning, which Ratio does a great job with giving us really good information, and actually put it to use on here in Utah, but then also on your campus, with UNCG or UNC Charlotte or at University of Nebraska-Lincoln or UNCW. And so we started talking then, and so this is where this came out of. So what we're going to do this year is we're going to partner with Maven, and they're going to actually be the leaders in this experience. So there's going to be chapter directors and leaders. So, Wesley and Ross and Tom are going to come, but we're going to be learning just as much as the students are going to be learning. And what we're going to be learning, how do we lead a trip like this? Because the goal is that we want to do stuff like this with Ratio chapters across the country multiple times a year into the future. So if you're a student and you're interested in learning, how do we do this, and then helping us lead experiences in the future, that's available to you. If you're a leader and you want to help lead them in the future, that's available to you. And so we're going to learn from Maven. We're partnering with Maven, and so they're actually going to take the lead. They've been doing this again for years. They've got all kinds of hookups with different leaders here and there's not a huge Christian community here in Utah, so a lot of people we all kind of just know each other and just starting to meet some of them now. But we'll get a chance to. So what will the experience look like? You'll come out in March, and everyone will arrive on a Sunday. It'll be Sunday through Saturday. And we will, let me say it this way. So before you even get out there, I mean, we want this is going to be, there's going to be some work involved, because many of you, I had no idea about any of the teachings of the LDS Church. I had a little bit of knowledge before coming out here. And so I'm still learning tons now. I'm on a huge learning curve. But one of the things we want to do is we want to introduce you to a lot of the LDS teaching on the front end. So this is a copy of the book that each of you will receive. And so Maven has put this together. Brett put it together with a guy named Chad, who is a youth pastor in California and works with Maven. But this is the first edition. They had just come out with this. So we'll be, I think, the second group to get a chance to use this out here. And so it's called The Final Word, what Scripture teaches about God and the gospel. But it helps walk through, at least on the front end, sort of introducing you to the teachings of the LDS Church. And so what will happen is there'll be 6 training sessions. And again, I can answer questions anybody has after we kind of go through this. But there'll be 6 training sessions that each of you will go through, where you will learn not only what does the LDS Church teach on X topic, but also what is the biblical answer, rebuttal, and to that, and then how do I share that with an LDS person? So there'll be six sessions, and each session is a little bit different. I'll show you. Let's see if I can pull out the table of contents here. So session 1, are Mormons Christian? Session 2, who is God? Session 3, what is the gospel? Session 4, how do we know what is true? Session 5, what is your authority? And then session 6, how do we engage with Mormons? So some of the stuff, since for Ratio Christi students, some of the stuff will be overlapped to a lot of stuff that we've learned in our Ratio Christi chapter meetings, but a lot of it will be new, especially as we learn how to apply it to conversations with LDS, and then what do the LDS believe. You'll have to read 2 books, and so there'll be, with all of those sessions, there'll actually be a quiz that goes along with it. I mean, basically, if you're paying attention, you'll pass. But the idea is that you actually have to go through the sessions, and you pass the quiz in order to be able to come out here, because we want people to put some, put some effort into learning this, because it will benefit you tremendously when you're out here to have studied this before. So each person will be required to read 2 books. I couldn't find my copy of, Brett Kunkel has a book. It's called The Ambassador's Basic Curriculum, and Stand to Reason did a couple of these, but he had a book on Mormonism. It's a little small book. I think we might even have brought ours out here, but you'll read that. And then you'll also read this book. It's called Witnessing to Mormons in Love by a guy named Daniel Thompson, Chip Thompson, who, just as a side note, he moved out here about 30 years ago to a town called Ephraim in the middle of nowhere in Utah, zero Christian presence whatsoever. And by God's grace, they built a ministry. They've actually planted 2 churches, or had a church came out of that, and another church planted out of it. And they actually bought an old house right by Snow Junior College. Lorenzo Snow was a former prophet here in Utah. Everything in Utah is named after Mormon terms. And so Snow Junior College, heavily LDS, and they actually built a coffee shop right beside that college. But if you need to know anything about LDS, they're not allowed to drink coffee. So it's super weird here, but they all talk about going out and having hot chocolate nights. So they'll invite you to hot chocolate nights, not coffee dates. So super interesting. Also, as another side note, they're like, if they want to, if the LDS kind of want to get wild, they drink soft drinks. So they have all these restaurants out here they're like Soda-licious, that are just soft drink places, because when people want to get crazy, they actually just drink some soft drinks. So again, it's a whole different world out here. It'll be all kinds of crazy stuff that you'll just be like, what in the world's going on? But you'll read this book, you'll read the Ambassador's Basic Curriculum, you'll go through those video lessons. So you'll do all that on the front end. So you'll be as prepared as you can be. If you're interested, I would recommend, this is my copy they call this the triple. So this is the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. So the LDS religion would say that these 3 books, along with the Bible, and they only use the King James Bible, as far as it was translated accurately, that represents the quad, and those are kind of supposed to be the 4 major books that they get all of their doctrine from. But as you'll see as we go through this, as we get, if you do come on the trip, you'll see that a lot of people, they don't believe a lot of what says in here, which, is probably true of a lot of Christians that you encounter on campuses where you guys are as well. So all of that will be on the front end. So I encourage you to read that if you can. Yeah, question?
Oh yeah, just a comment. There's an app that they use as well called the Gospel Library. And that has a lot of those resources. It's got all of their scriptures, and it's also got a sundry other resources that they use.
Gospel topic.
Gospel Library, and it's got the Mormon guy with the trumpet on there.
Moroni.
So, Moroni, yes.
So it's a Mormon resource.
Yeah, they use like that's the app that they use when they're on their missions and stuff. Like, it's got some of the training materials. Got like institutes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when we're one of the places. Well, so I'll tell you. So what will happen? So that will be all on the front end, and then I don't have all of the logistics down because again, Maven is planning this, but a lot of what we're going to be doing is going to be similar to what they did in the past. So I kind of I understand a little bit about what they've done, and I can tell you a little bit about what we did. But everyone will get in. So it's 1st through the 7th. So everyone flies in on Sunday. I think I told y'all the cost of the trip is $500 plus travel. And the reason we say that is because each person's travel is going to be a little bit different. So if you're Tom's flying from Wilmington, that's going to cost more than, Wesley flying from Nebraska, or, Ryan, riding his bicycle out here, whatever, however you want to get out here, just get out here. Okay. But and then the $500, as long as we get at least 20 people, which I think we're going to be able to do, that will cover food and transportation and everything when you're out here. Now you're not going to be we're not staying at the Ritz-Carlton. So get used to, this will be, this is mission trip living. So we've got a church that we're going to stay at, it's a little bit north of Salt Lake. And so, that they've partnered with before. And so that'll kind of be our home base. And then we'll have, throughout the week, we'll have evangelical Christians from here that'll come and talk to you. So, as an example, if you're some of these websites that are good to look up, but Mormon Research Ministries, a guy named Bill McKeever, he'll talk to you. He's as educated on this as anybody ever will be. Sandra Tanner with Utah Lighthouse Ministry. She's actually Brigham Young's great-great-granddaughter. And her and her husband, Gerald Tanner, converted to Christianity in like the 60s and have just done amazing work on exposing the false truth claims of the LDS Church. And so she's here, so hopefully she'll talk to you. There's a lady named Doris Hanson who actually came out of one of the polygamous groups here in Utah. We'll probably get a chance to hear from her. Hopefully we'll get a chance to hear from some LDS leaders as well. So when the group came out from UNCW, we had a couple LDS guys that spoke to us and gave us a chance to have some back and forth with them. And then we'll have set times where we'll go down to Temple Square. So Temple Square is this area in Salt Lake City that's owned by the LDS Church, and that's where the originalist temple is. So Moroni up there on the top, all the temples have Moroni blowing his trumpet, calling you to the temple. So actually, from where I live, there's a temple maybe 2 miles, well, not even a mile this way. And just as a side fact, real estate, like back east, I'll say like has, mountain views or ocean views. When they advertise real estate here, it'll say temple views, and it actually drives up the price of real estate. So if you get a view of the temple, your house is worth a lot more. And so temples all over Utah. There's about 180 some temples in the world, and I think 10% of them, 18, 19, 20, are here in Utah. So you'll get a chance to go down to Temple Square. You'll get to meet some of the Mormon missionaries that are down there. Only female Mormon missionaries in Temple Square. I think that's totally strategic on the LDS because, people aren't going to really want to argue with, Mormon missionary girls. They're really sweet, really nice. And so they'll talk to you. We've had lots of good discussions with them. You can ask them questions and everything. They'll lead you on tours around the property. The church actually bought this giant mall right across the street from the temple. And so there's property there. There's a bookstore there. You can go in, and actually in the backs where they sell the garments that you have to wear in the temple. So all the undergarments that the LDS have to wear, you can go in, you can see where they buy those and those kind of things. So you'll spend a day down there doing evangelism. So you'll break up into groups. We'll have time you'll have time to take the tours and kind of sightsee, but you'll also do some evangelism. And then we'll have some time of debriefing after that. We will get a chance to go down to BYU to actually go to the campus. And so this is what I was telling you before. We'll go to where their cafeteria is. They've got restaurants all over. And then you'll get a chance in groups of 2 or 3 to sit down with students, and we've got some ways to get into these conversations that are really helpful, and just start having gospel conversations with people. And so we heard, and then afterwards we'll debrief. I was there with this a couple months ago with the students, and just a lot of good, a lot of excitedness from students after conversations, but a lot of frustration. You'll have lots of frustration in your conversation with the LDS because it sounds like you're saying the same thing and you're not, and it's just it's really frustrating. And that's also why studying this stuff on the front end it is so important, because you realize we're using the same lexicon but a very different dictionary. Same words mean completely different things in the LDS religion and biblical Christianity. And then also you'll get a chance to go door knocking in Provo. So we kind of call this the reverse mission. So they come door knocking, all over the world. So we're going to do the same thing to them. And so again, groups of 2s and 3s, you'll go and you'll knock on doors. And these are not confrontational in the sense, it's not like a mano a mano. We're trying to see who can win. We're not trying to, win arguments. And so this was actually when the group was here in September, they actually, from what we can tell, actually led somebody to Christ in that conversation they had when they went door knocking in Provo. Someone had never, was an LDS person who had never heard the gospel. It sounds so crazy to think, but here in Utah, almost assuredly, they've never talked to a Christian. They've never heard the true gospel, and that should break your heart for people who are trying so hard to be good and to do all these things that the church tells them they have to do, and it's the impossible gospel. And then we get a chance to show them the freedom that we have in Christ, and God does amazing things. So, not saying that's definitely going to happen, but there can be incredible conversations that can happen just from getting up to bat, as Greg Kokel says. And so, we'll do some other evangelism things as well. We're talking about, hopefully at the end, maybe the last night. And so again, this is kind of in the working stages, because y'all are this is the pioneer project. We're trying to figure this out. But maybe having an Airbnb or something the last night where we can kind of come and we can go up in the mountains. It's beautiful here, snow. I mean, it's snowing right now here, and get a chance to kind of decompress. But also, you'll work on telling your story. So you'll work on right then when it's very important to you, what did you learn this week? So part of what you'll have in this And this is, you'll have all the stuff on the front end, but every day during the trip, you'll have a journal that as you'll write about, what did we do today? What have I learned? What was I challenged in? And the goal is that at the end, we'll be able to kind of write your story so that when people ask you about, what about your trip into Utah, you won't just say, we went to So Delicious and we saw some beautiful things. You'll be able to tell the gospel, the story of being able to share the gospel with really an unreached people group here in the United States. And the goal would be that it would, that by God's grace, your heart would be broken for the LDS people, and that maybe you'd want to move out here, or maybe you want to continue to be in missions out here. And so we're actually going to have a pastor, former pastor is going to come, and I'm talking with him. We're kind of in the early stages of it, but he's going to come to meet with y'all. And there are internships that we're going to have set up that you can come back out here in the summer and work with churches out here, because I went to a church the other day, and it was the church in the entire town. It's like biblical times. There's lots of towns where there are 0 churches whatsoever. It's not like we're in the South where there's a church on every corner. And so there's opportunities for internships out here in the summer. If you have interest in coming out here, and what happened to me, and I think what happened to Tom, I'll let you share in a minute, is your heart will just be broken for people who have never heard the gospel, and we have the good news, and we get a chance to share it with them. And so that's a lot. I know, that's a whole lot that's going on, but it will change. I believe it will change your life. I believe it will change your eternity. I know it did for me coming out here. I certainly believe that will change the way that y'all see unbelievers on your campus. And I know that it did for the UNCW group, where their evangelism just took off when they went back, because you realize that and out here people want to have these conversations. So I've had some of the best religious conversations I've ever had in this past semester being out here. When we would table at the University of Utah, we'd set up a table, I'd set up my whiteboard, ask a question, and then every single day I engaged with, there was at least one really good conversation, often multiple conversations. There's a lot of atheists in Utah. A lot of people, especially younger people, are recognizing, so that the church will not let you look at anything that's not pro-Mormon. They call it anti-Mormon propaganda. And so, unfortunately, though, that young people are, they're hearing these things, they're going on the internet, and they're finding out that the truth claims of the church are false. And so what's happening, though, is most of them are going towards atheism. So atheism is just exploding out here because they have been lied to their whole life. And they think, well, if Christianity, if Mormonism isn't true, then Christianity isn't true. And so they're angry, and there's a lot of angry atheists here. So on the campus at the U, I run into lots of angry atheists. And then lots of people who have grew up sort of tangentially around Mormonism or LDS that want to have nothing to do with it, and in turn are rejecting Christianity. So again, you get a chance to have gospel conversations with people who have never heard the true gospel. They'll tell you, "Oh, I know Christianity," but when they say Christianity, they mean the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And you actually get a real chance to actually share the gospel with somebody that's pretty incredible. So hopefully we'll get to some evangelism at the University of Utah, and certainly down at BYU. And, like I said, it will break your heart to hear students who have they've been indoctrinated to this their whole life. And, they think I have to do all these things in order to earn, and they believe earn godhood. They believe if I do enough good things, I'll actually become a god, which I believe is, Genesis 3 being reborn, right? It's the lie of Satan. So, all right, that's a lot of me talking, which I'm sure you're tired of. So, Tom, why don't you just take 5 minutes and just share about your trip out here and how it was helpful for y'all, and then we can open it up for questions or comments or hilarious anecdotes if you've got stuff you'd like to just share with the group.
Yeah, I've got a lot of hilarious anecdotes, but I don't want to eat up everybody's time just by telling stories about Aaron. But
also, your face is frozen on. Oh, there you go. It's better.
Okay. All right. So I won't share a lot of details. Aaron shared kind of the structure of what the trip's probably going to be like. But I'll just say that the students and myself, I went out with my wife and also with my 18-year-old daughter. And the prep beforehand was really good. Learning about Mormon theology was really good. And just the encounters that you have out there. All of you probably have in your head a picture of what it's going to be like to confront members of the LDS Church. And it probably goes along the lines of they know so much they know their theology so much better than we do our theology. And what you're going to find when you get out there is that if you talk to 10 different Mormons, they've got 10 different ideas of what the Mormon church teaches. Just like if you talk to 10 different Christians, you're probably going to get some different views of God's nature, Calvinist, Arminian, all the different issues that Christians have. You're going to have Mormons all over the map as well. So the one thing that we learned is that you can't assume that they all know their stuff. As a matter of fact, having prepared for the trip, many of us will probably know more about what the church teaches than they will. And so that's something that I found was encouraging, and hopefully it encourages you so that you don't feel intimidated. And also just the interactions with the LDS members, as well as with the Christians that are out there ministering to the LDS members. Just incredibly rich time of sharing the gospel, of hearing some of what they believe. A couple of things Aaron mentioned when we came back, it really did light a fire under our students as far as evangelism, because they came back thinking, man, if I can share the gospel in Utah to members of the LDS Church, I can definitely share the gospel with apathetic college students down here at the beach who are open to anything, but because of relativism, they believe that anything is true. So it definitely gave them a boost of courage in evangelism. And so we went from last year from having one day a week where we went out and did evangelism to where we did evangelism every day of the week during the semester, giving students different opportunities to go out. So it was a great shot in the arm for our evangelism for our university. Another thing that Aaron and I talked about this after the trip is it really convicted us about knowing our Bible better, because a lot of times Mormons will quote a passage of scripture very loosely, or they'll say, well, the Bible says this, when it really doesn't say that. But I knew the Bible didn't say that, but I couldn't think of exactly where. Expert on Mormon theology, but to really, so that was a big takeaway. But just overcoming fears, getting out there, doing it, and realizing that it's a lot more fun than you think it's going to be. It's a lot less intimidating. It's a lot more interesting. You have a lot more compassion, and it becomes less of an intellectual activity where you're trying to come up with a better argument, where really you're seeing these people are deceived, and you are trying to share something with them that the Holy Spirit will take and use it to help open their eyes. And so I can't recommend it enough as far as just a tremendous boost in your own spiritual, in your own walk with Christ, being able to get out and share the gospel in an unreached people group.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's interesting about being out here is, man, there are just some, you experience people with the weirdest theology you've ever experienced in your entire life. I mean, not just like this weird amalgamation of all kinds of things. I mean, literally yesterday I was at the post office trying to mail some stuff, and I spent 2.5 hours talking to the post office guy, who's this weird Buddhist that he converted to because he didn't get interested in Christianity. And so now he's this just super weird Buddhism thing. And he was telling me all kinds of weird stuff. But almost at least once a week, I'll come home and I'm talking to my wife, and I'm just like, you will not believe the conversation I got in today. People want to talk about it. And it's interesting. And again, I believe that, the LDS Church is, I believe that it's of the devil, because it's this taking what's, the worst part of, the worst lie is the one that's got, a lot of truth in it. And so, but it doesn't have a lot of truth in it, because there's lots of things we can demonstrate that aren't true, but just enough to say, hey, we're Christians. And I believe that, that people will perish apart from the true gospel. And so that should, and this is in the United States. So you don't have to go to, some far off place to have a chance to reach people who really have never heard the gospel before, come to Utah, right here in the United States. So, so questions, comments, any questions I can ask. I've got some other resources I was going to, I can share with you if you're looking for, Christmas presents, or if you get an Amazon gift card, that you want to share. I got all kinds of books. I got books for days.
That's cool. Hey, well, yeah, Aaron, I have a quick question about, so you were saying that, that there are atheists in Utah who are like former Mormons. Have you ever like met these people or like had a conversation with someone who like explicitly said like they're an atheist because they left Mormonism?
Oh yeah, every day. So what'll happen? So one of the guys that I met that you guys will meet. So everyone's got different ways to do evangelism. So this is actually a book that we read. So I'll introduce. This is called "Sharing the Good News with Mormons" by Eric Johnson and Sean McDowell. Most of you know Sean McDowell. Eric Johnson is he's part of Bill McKeever's ministry, Mormon Research Ministry here in Utah. And so each chapter is written by a different person, kind of with different ways to evangelize. So one of the guys was this guy, Rob Savolka, who has this website called josephlie.com, and he has this giant sign, and it's got like, it's lit up, and it just says Joseph lied, and he goes down to the temple, and so I'm thinking, this guy's just going to be angry. He's not going to, he's just going to kind of be just not very friendly. Well, anyway, he's probably become one of our better friends here in Utah. But once a month, he hosts an ex-Mormon meetup, and so he interviews them for his website. So you can go listen. He's got hundreds of interviews of former Mormons. But the guy that was there, that was sharing his testimony on Saturday, was a former LDS, and so he actually he was talking to the prophet at the time. So this is back in 2000. And if this doesn't make sense to you, it will in the future. But for forever, up until I think 2010, the LDS Church denied that Joseph Smith translated the Book of Mormon by looking into a hat and having a seer stone. So what the story of the church said was that he actually looked at the golden plates and then translated the golden plates into English. God translated it, and then he shared it, right? Well, that's not the story that they share now. And so what had been known forever was that Joseph Smith was into money digging and into all this occult stuff and masonry. And he had a seer stone in a hat, and he put the stone in a hat, and he put his face in the hat, and then the words would appear on that stone. Well, back in 2000, this guy he was on his Mormon mission in Louisiana, and the prophet is there, the president of the church, right? And they say that every one of the presidents, they said, has actually had a personal meeting with Jesus Christ. Every one of the prophets, they'll say Jesus Christ has talked to them. So this, if there's ever anybody that knows the truth, it's this guy. And my friend now, he asked him, he says, I'm hearing a lot of this stuff about the rock in the hat. And the guy, the prophet looked at him and dead in the eye, and says, that is a lie. That is not true. And then 10 years later, and they had the rock in the vault the whole time. They have this giant vault, this mountain over here. I can show you what that is, where they keep all of they keep all of the things that they know, I think, demonstrate that Mormonism isn't true. They had the evidence. They knew that what he was saying was false, and he just lied to them. And so he became just this angry atheist. He tells us for the next 2 years, all he wanted to do was just argue with LDS, and you'll see this a lot with if you know who kind of what you're looking for, and you get on certain groups like on Facebook and stuff. A lot of just angry ex-Mormons who are just there because they've been lied to their whole life, and they've also been told from day one, since they were 3-4 years old, that if the Mormon Church isn't true, nothing is true. And so they find out it's not true. And so now they become very angry atheists. And so we've only actually been, I only had one guy really get mad at me when I was tabling on campus. And I think he was an ex-Mormon. In fact, he almost got into a fight with our chapter director up at Weber State. Well, we thought he was just very angry. Tom and I were in a conversation with a guy at a diner. This was the first week I was here, and I was asking questions. He was a former LDS, and now is an angry atheist. And I thought he was going to punch me in the face, Tom. I mean, I was just asking him questions. He was so angry. And so, I mean, like Tom said, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, these people have been lied to their whole life, and now they come to believe that it's not true. And so they go to atheism. There's a guy here who runs has a podcast called Mormon Stories. And the group has taken off. They actually have billboards on the interstate here and even all the way up into Idaho. And his name's John DeLynn. He's an agnostic atheist. And so he's leading a lot of people out of Mormonism into agnosticism and atheism. And it's horrible. But yeah, so you'll see tons of that. So a lot of the people, so you'll never know. Like I remember one day, I mean, it's kind of like on campus back home, but I mean, one day I had a conversation when I was tabling at the U with an LDS person, a Christian, a Satanist, and an atheist, like all back to back to back to back, which, I mean, we're kind of weird, but that was awesome. That was a great day. But a lot of the angriest people you'll meet out here are former atheists. Now, what's also interesting is Salt Lake City is super liberal. So Salt Lake City is actually very, very liberal. All of the kind of people in the surrounding counties, they look at that as like Salt Lake City is Sodom and Gomorrah. So BYU, when BYU plays the University of Utah, they call it the Saints versus the Convicts. So a lot of Salt Lake City is, I mean, they have a huge pride parade here. The former mayor of Salt Lake City was lesbian. So a huge, just very secular environment in the city. But then in the outskirts, you've got just deep, deep roots of LDS. And then down in southern Utah, that's where you have the polygamous groups that are just, and even some in this area. I mean, I can take you and I can show you where Warren Jeff's house was here in Salt Lake City or Draper before he moved the group down to Colorado City. And some of the grossest stuff. I mean, it's horrible. I mean, just child sex trafficking is huge out here because it's there's a huge sexual abuse problem within the Mormon church that no one wants to talk about. So a lot of that's happening and people are just going to atheism. I know that's a 30-minute answer to a short question, but yes, that's why.
If I could just cut in really quick, what was the name of that website again that you said where it's like Joseph Lied, or what is the name of that website?
JosephLied.com. Yeah.
JosephLied.com. Because when we type that in,
we get MormonInfo.org.
It's the same.
Is what it redirects us to.
It's the same thing.
Same thing. All right.
Oh, okay.
Bob Savolka's website. Yeah.
Nice.
Sorry.
Yeah, I recommend this book. This is, if you're looking for, I got some others I'll show you, but this, Sharing the Good News with Mormons. And so Rob writes a chapter in that book about why he does what he does and why, just as an example, he got a chance to, the quorum of the 12, they believe that there's actually 12 apostles. And so they have 12 apostles that are from all over the world that are, part of their quorum right now. And Rob got a chance to actually to challenge one of the quorum of the 12 members at a Christmas thing here a couple weeks ago, and went up to him and just basically, lovingly was telling him he was a false prophet, and then until his security ushered him away. But he said, why do I do what I do? People always say what you're doing is wrong. But he said that the next day when he was just with his sign, he said that their traffic on their website something like quintupled based on an average day, because people are going back and they are in the privacy of their home. Now, when they're out there, they're adamant, Mormonism is true, Mormonism is true. But they talk about out here the shelf, and the idea is that all Mormons have this shelf, and you keep putting stuff on the shelf, and at some point the shelf breaks, and you never know what that's going to be. For some people, it's the seer, it's the hat and the stone. For some people, it's that Joseph Smith, that he was the polygamy. For some people, it's whatever. And so he said that he'll have a lot of traffic on his website for people that in their house are looking at that, and so he's just got all kinds of information on that website about the false claims of the LDS Church.
Another great resource is the Christian Apologetic Resource Ministries, CARM.
Yep, CARM. Yeah.
Yep, they've got a lot of really good stuff. I know, like when you were talking about the differences in our terminology, we say the same things but mean different, have different meanings behind it. They have like a whole list of pretty much every spiritual term you could think of and what biblical Christianity means by it and what the LDS faith means by it. That's a really great one to look up as well.
Yeah, I think Slick's in Idaho. I think he's up in Idaho, and there's a huge LDS population in Idaho. If you guys ever, a book, James White is with Alpha and Omega Ministries. I'm reading this book, Letters to a Mormon Elder. It's a good resource. We actually had James White and Jeff Durbin, Apologia Radio, they do a lot of work. They're actually working on a documentary right now on Mormonism. We actually had them here to do a debate this fall, which if you want to just see the worst closing argument ever, watch that debate, because the atheist in the debate, the professor, tried to challenge them to drink water, radiator fluid or something, because the long ending of Mark says if you drink poison and live, then it's a true gospel. And so he sounded like it was a revivalist preacher up there. But anyway, but they're really good. There's lots of people that have dedicated their time, focused on ministry to the LDS. And so when you're out here, you know who they are, and I can give y'all resources from other people that are really good. They have lots of good materials.
A couple questions. Where can we find the debate?
It's online. If you go to Apologia Radio, they filmed it. So it was James White and Jeff Durbin, and they debated. I'm blanking on the two atheists, Greg Clark, Dr. Clark. It was back into September. So, I don't know. So I don't want to step on any toes, but the White and Durbin are presuppositional in their apologetics. So it wasn't the way so I didn't think the debate was great, but if nothing else, the closing by Clark's worth the price of admission, because he was well. And look, this is the kind of similar thing. I mean, it's a little bit different, but Clark actually grew up Catholic and was Catholic, and then I found this out later, and so there were two Catholic priests there that came up to him afterwards. And he immediately changed his tune and was very apologetic towards them. So I'm convinced that something happened to him in the Catholic Church that drove him to atheism, just like we're seeing a lot of Mormons that are being driven to atheism because something happened to them.
And then three things. Nelly, also, if any of you are part of Reddit, if you want to see the angry atheists from Mormonism, especially very liberal ones, a very good one is the subreddit X Mormon. It is full of
just
people.
found that on Google.
It is incredible. I joined Reddit. I joined an apologetics group, and the next thing Reddit suggested was the X Mormon subreddit. I was like, sure, but a lot of them are actually in Utah still. So a lot of people post selfies of when they leave the church, and they're confident about it. So you actually might see somebody if you go there.
Yeah, you'll get sucked into. You can get sucked into all. You can spend days getting sucked into that stuff.
Oh yeah. Also, are we going to be able to go to the coffee shop?
Which the one down in Ephraim?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's something that they used to, but it's like a 3-hour drive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think in the past they've done it, but you're gonna read his book, and so sometimes I think he might come up here. His book's really good, and so he might come up here to speak to us. We might go down there. I mean, there's so much to see. I mean, if you were here for 2 weeks, we would go down to southern Utah. We'd go down to Zion National Park, and also right by there is Colorado City. That's where Warren Jeffs had the fundamentalist group. If you know anything about Warren Jeffs, he's been in federal prison for years, but Colorado City, right there on the border, it's the Mormons call it Short Creek, is just a horrible, it's a demonic place. And you see Jeff's house, actually, one of Jeff's, he had 70 some wives. One of them actually became a Christian, and now his kind of compound there is actually turned into a Christian ministry center for women that are leaving polygamy. And so we can actually, if we had time, we could go down there and you could meet them, and there's a pastor here in town who does a lot of work with the polygamous community. And again, just it's horrible. I mean, it'll break your heart. When the second time I was here, I was down in southern Utah for a ministry, and I had heard about the polygamous groups, but I'd never seen anybody. And this guy drives up, this older guy, and 3 younger girls get out, all dressed like pioneer women. And he was dropping them off to work at the hotel for the day while he did whatever. And then at the end of the day, he came back and picked them up. And then I found out that was actually a polygamous-owned hotel down in southern Utah. And but they're not even all down there. I mean, there's a group here, the Kingston group, that's right here in Salt Lake City that a guy who's done a lot of ministry here, been here for like 30 years, Tom, he's told me some of the just most horrible things that's going on there. And again, I believe it's satanic, and obviously you got a lot of power, you got a lot of money, and those things corrupt, and without the Holy Spirit, it's bad.
Also, I think it was Nelly asking earlier, is there a due date for the deposit?
Well, so we have 30 spots. Okay, so right now we have 30 spots. Right now, 8 of those are taken. Eight people have confirmed with me that they're going, and then there's some others. I know that there's some from UNCG. I know that have given deposits. I just haven't got the exact numbers from Ross. So we need to get 12 more definites to make our numbers work. That's where the 500 works for all that. But then if we get more, then you'll actually get a little bit of money back when you're here. So when you get here, I'll issue you some spending money, just like Grandma used to do, and then you can go down to the bookstore and blow it on books. I try to go to the Deseret bookstore. Deseret is a Mormon term and owned by the Mormon Church. Every time I go in there, I try to not buy a book, and every time I come out with at least one book. So my goal is to at least go there one time without buying a book. But so if we can get 30, awesome. And again, it's hard to explain to you, I think, why I think this is so important, but you'll know, I think after you've been here for a week, you'll say, okay, I think you're right. I mean, I don't know, maybe you'll disagree, but I think you'll just be like, yeah, I can't explain it. I mean, I can, you can tell I'm excited about it, I'm interested, but there's just something about being here. My friend, one of Tom and I friends, he came out here just last week, and he was just creeped out the whole time. I mean, he was just like, I can't be here anymore. I mean, really, down at the Temple Square, both of us, I've had Christian friends who cannot go to Temple Square because they're different people kind of have different, they're just creeped out, or whether it's, whether it's the spirit or what, but he was like, I'm glad you're doing this, because I could not do that. And so it's just, but you see people that are just, that are held captive to a false gospel. And so, for me, it's broken my heart for them, and wanted to, to persist in a really dark place. But yeah, so Ryan, so if you can get me your deposit, or to Ross, or whatever, then that can get your spot. But then we have to get all of the money needs to be turned in by February 1st. So by February 1st, we have to give them the final accounting of everything. So the deposit will hold your spot, and then by the beginning of February, we have to turn in all of the money. So for those of you that do like $100 deposit, then the rest of the extra $400, and then y'all will secure your own airfare out here. Or if you want to rent a giant bus, Tom will drive you all out here, and he'll just swing by different places in the States and pick you up, and you can come out that way. Or you can just ride in the van that y'all are hanging out in right now.
It's comfortable.
Yeah.
Road trip. Let's go.
Yeah. The trunk is comfortable.
So, quick question. So, what, I guess briefly, other than like some of the resources you've already had, like what are some tips for witnessing to Mormons here in, wherever we're at right now?
Yeah. Just the tactic stuff, asking lots of questions, 80% questions, 20% talking. So what do you mean by that? And how'd you come to that conclusion? Because you do not mean the same thing. And so I think there's, out here, there was a guy that's kind of controversial because he did this kind of road show with a Mormon scholar where it was evangelical and Mormons in dialogue, and they went around to all these different places. If y'all remember, Ravi Zacharias came out here a couple years ago. Well, this was the guy that organized that. And a lot of people are convinced that he's kind of been hoodwinked a little bit, because he's like, well, look, he would say that he thinks that they're not Christians, but it just sounds like they're saying the same thing so much. So a book that I would recommend, this is actually, if you want to find what the church teaches, it has to have this stamp on it. So it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. If it has that stamp on it, then that's official church teaching. So this is a book called Gospel Principles that I bought at the Deseret bookstore, because again, I can't go down there without buying a book. And this is good because it walks you through what they believe on everything. So just like, I don't know, this is an example. When they talk about the atonement, they're not talking about Jesus's death on the cross. They're talking about him suffering in the Garden of Gethsemane. And so it's just like, what are you talking about? So that's where they believe you have to be suffering a lot for your sin, all kinds of stuff. But that's kind of laid out in this. So I think that's a helpful book for me to. So I've bought a lot of. I've got this other book. I don't have it with me. It's over there, but it was sort of a Book of Mormon study guide, so to speak, but that was some notes by an LDS. They're very, very squirmy. You know, like Sandra Tanner says, it's like, you know, trying to nail Jell-O to the wall that's been caked in Crisco, because they're just very slippery. So, you know, it's like the best way to find out what you believe is not to read a bunch of books on Christianity. It's just to ask you. Same thing with them. But it's just hard because they say that the average time, if someone does leave Mormonism, the average time is 7 years from the first time they've heard some kind of, you know, non-Christian, non-LDS, you know, worldview. So they heard the gospel the first time because they've been so indoctrinated. So I remember on the campus one day, I had this like hour and a half conversation with this LDS student. She had all kinds of questions. We had this great conversation. I mean, I was very challenging to her. We had a pretty good rapport. You know, I was telling her I thought what she believed was demonic, but I was saying it in a nice way. I mean, I wasn't, you know. And so we had a really good, you know, she was asking lots of questions. At the end, I said, would you please take this? And it was just actually a pamphlet that Apologia Church had put out on the Gospel to Mormons. And she said, oh, I never read anti-Mormon propaganda. And so even after all of this, and she could tell my heart, and she said, I appreciate this conversation. She had been so indoctrinated that anything that even hinted of that. So it's just, you know, the one thing that you can't expect is I'll come out here with a bunch of knowledge and I'll just demonstrate to them how stupid their beliefs are in 30 minutes and I'll get a bunch of people saved, because everything that you're going to tell them, they've been taught from when they were young as saying, these are the lies of Satan. So when you say things, they'll say, oh, I knew you were going to, you know, oh, that makes sense because this is exactly what I've been taught that Satan would tell me. And so it's just this, it's insidious. But this book is really good. The Sharing the Good News with Neighbors. Sharing the Good News with Mormons. That book, because it has lots of tips in different ways. That book has maybe 20 or 30 chapters, all with different ways people do evangelism. And so that's really good. And then this book here that you're going to get when you come, The Witnessing to Mormons in Love. Every person that I talk to here that knows their stuff always recommends that book as saying this is probably one of the better books to know how to witness to people, because having the knowledge is different than having the conversations. I mean, we all know that. And so I think those are two good resources. And I'm still learning. I mean, you know, even being out here for 4 months, I mean, it's amazing just how like Tom was saying, how you realize how little we think we actually know, you know, because people's theology is so at home, we're all kind of basically thinking the same and talking, so we can kind of get into different issues, but you can't assume anything out here. And so,
hey Aaron, can I suggest something else too?
Yeah.
I was just going to suggest, this may sound super intimidating, but if you have a local Mormon church around there, find a friend and just go and visit and just ask a lot of questions. And then you might strike up a conversation with somebody who's friendly and interested in sharing with you about the church, and then you can go grab coffee with them. We have a couple of Mormon missionaries that come around campus every now and then, so they come to us, and so we get to engage with them. But we had a student here that worship of another faith, and so she wanted to go to the Mormon temple, which happens to be right across the street from the campus. And so my daughter went, and I figured I would go, and so we went, and it's not as intimidating as you think. They're not doing any child sacrifice or anything like that. But you can strike up a conversation, just again, ask a lot of questions. And some of the stuff you'll know, wow, that's clearly contrary to the gospel. But then other stuff will be so left field that you'll just want to ask them, well, why do you believe that? Or where'd that come from? And so really just, again, asking questions is one of the best ways to learn.
Well,
Yeah,
I actually have a follow-up question of that. So isn't there like some sort of doctrinal belief within the Mormon church, though, that people who are not like professed Mormons, like they're not allowed to enter a temple and like like attend like a service? Like how would we go about like going to a temple and like engaging with people?
So what Tom is saying is not the temple, but the
Yeah.
ward. Okay, so
Yeah.
so
the
every sorry, go ahead. And
Oh,
also,
yeah.
Tom, you sound like you're drinking coffee and then chugging a bunch of depressants, like going back and forth.
Yeah, I'm on my phone, so it doesn't have the best audio. Next time I'll get on the laptop.
But yeah, so the temple, so only LDS worthy people are allowed to go to the temple. So not even everybody that's LDS can go in the temple. In fact, a friend of mine, his position, he thinks, because numbers wise, the LDS church is declining, right? Just from an overall numbers, but they're still building lots of temples. And his position, he thinks, because the temples are money makers for the church, because if you're going to be, so they just had general conference out here 2 months ago, where the whole church listens to these super boring lectures all day long. It's so boring, but that's where they kind of tell their doctrine. And so they changed up some of the temple questions. So if you want to become temple worthy, which if you want to go to exaltation, if you want to become your own God, you have to be temple worthy. One of the things you have to do is you have to be caught up in all your tithes, which means you have to be paying a lot of money. If you just saw this article that the Wall Street Journal just broke, they have a $300 billion portfolio, the Mormon church does. So just insane. But so the temple, so we can't go in the temple. So in fact, a friend of mine, when my friend was here just the other week, we actually, for whatever reason, they left the gates open. So we just kind of wandered in like we were just tourists. We didn't know what we were doing. And we actually got all the way to the temple door and we're walking around there, which I've never gotten that close ever. But in order to get into the temple, you have to have your recommend card and you have to be temple worthy. And so that happens when you're a certain age, you go through that process.
Right.
And, but so we would never be able to be in the temple except when the temple is first opened or if it's been restored. So in Apex, they just had a new temple that was just built and opened at the end of September. So Tom and a group from UNCW went to that temple before they bless it and before it becomes, it's only for the LDS, they actually open it up to the general public. So you could go in there. I went to a temple here in Utah when that was happening. And actually they're good. When you guys come to, in March, the temple here in Salt Lake City is actually going to be closed. They're closing it down on December 31st. It's going to be closed down for 5 years. They're earthquake proofing it. They're doing all this stuff. They're building a tunnel from the conference center over. But when that reopens 5 years from now, before it reopens to be the temple, then anybody can go in. But to go to a ward, which is what their Sunday service is, anybody can go to that. So when you're here, if anybody wants to, you can come a day early. We could just, y'all could sleep at my house. But if you wanted to, then on Sunday morning, we could actually go to a ward and you can go and go and visit. We went to Provo, to the first ward in Provo, to their fasting and testimony Sunday. And when we were here, and it'll break your heart. I mean, it was bad. But
so
if anybody
a ward
wants
is going to be different than going to the temple. Is that like their version of a church, or is that like a completely separate building?
Yeah, so temple is where temple work is done. So that's where you get baptized for the dead, where you have sealing ceremonies for you and your bride, where you have this initiation ceremony when you become temple worthy, and you learn the secret handshakes and you learn the name. Like if you're a woman, you learn the name. Well, actually, this is in the sealing ceremony. You learn your actual Mormon name that your husband has to call out to you in the afterlife, and if he doesn't call that name out, then you can't be a goddess. You can't have your own planet. So all of that happens in the temple. In the ward is just kind of like what we would. So they have Bible study. They have the communion ceremony, which is where they take water for communion. It's kind of weird, but they do water. And then they have like the men's and women's group that they broke up. And so that's all on a Sunday. And whatever neighborhood you live in, that's the ward you go to. So we have a ward just 2 blocks down from us. Also, like when you're in middle school, they, like the church, I mean, the church is involved in everything here. So the students, like my daughter goes to middle school down there. And so the Mormon students will leave school and go take classes at the ward, indoctrination classes every day. And by every college here, there's a seminary, an LDS seminary. And actually in the spring, I'm going to start taking that. I didn't know you could do this, but I found out you could. So I'm going to go take some classes from them, the LDS seminary classes. So who knows? I might be converted by the time y'all get here.
Yeah. So, yeah, Hannah or Nelly or anybody that's around in UNCG, I actually got to go to one of the wards. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. Since my church, we're now having evening services, so I got to go, and they were like super welcoming. They were happy I was there, happy that I was straight up and was like, hey, I'm a Christian. I don't believe what you guys believe, but I'm interested in learning more about it. And they introduced me to the missionaries. They introduced me to a couple other people, and they were just super welcoming overall. And I've been able to speak with the missionaries a couple more times, and they actually have a ward here in Greensboro for like young adults. It's like a young adult ward specifically. So yeah, if any of you guys are interested in coming to that at some point, I'd love to do
if
that.
you
Let's
want
go,
to,
gosh, we got to go to that.
if you want to have the best way, if you want to have a conversation with a Mormon missionary, is go on to the website, the church website, and request a Book of Mormon, because they'll hand deliver, a Mormon missionary will hand deliver it to you, and then you can have a conversation there.
It's really cool.
Yeah, so go on the website, request a Book of Mormon, and they'll bring it to you. Now, what will happen? So Mac, I don't know if this, but what will usually happen is they will engage with you in conversation until it becomes clear that you're not being converted, but you're trying to convert, and then then they'll shut down the conversation. Either one of like an older person, a stake president or something will come with them, and or they'll just tell you, not to. They won't let you have conversations again. So we had some Mormon missionaries that were coming to our that we had met when we were at UNCW. In fact, we invited them to come speak at one of our meetings, and Grant Forrester was having good conversations with them and met with them for lunch a couple of times, and then they were told to discontinue the conversation. So that's, when you start pressing them enough. Now, doesn't mean we shouldn't do it, but it just means that they're just so indoctrinated that they're most of them are not going to listen beyond a certain bit, but you never know, right? And that's what, like Lynn Wilder's story.
There is two things that you do engage with missionaries. I've been talking to Anna Kitko. She's the South Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee director, and she specializes in cults. And we were talking about a couple months ago that if you do engage, the people that are going to be willing to press back the most are the men. I still have rapport with two girls. One's actually in Idaho. She's about to move to West Virginia. She's getting married, and then they're getting sealed in Georgia, I think. And then another one, I don't remember where she's at right now. But if you're going to engage, if you're going to do it with a woman, you have to make sure that you do it very subtly and very slowly, because that's going to shut the conversation down. Anna and I are both kind of corroborating our stories. It looks like if you do engage, especially if they're in your area, and you push back, even if it's gentle, and you do that over a sustained period, we both notice that the girls I will talk to, they rotate the missionaries out during their mission, and they will leave. Yeah. So you had to be very careful on how you do it, but it's a lot of work, but it's a very, very interesting.
Is that primarily when a man is engaging with a woman, or even like when another girl is talking to a Mormon who is also a girl?
I would say, from my experience, of course, it's there's girls live like less than a mile away, so it's easier for me to talk to them. Mm-hmm. But from what Anna said, as far as leaving goes, it might be a little more subtle, but it does seem to happen even woman on woman. That does seem to be a trend of sorts.
Okay.
Yeah, in my experience, last year I was speaking with some of the female missionaries, and they met a couple times, but they lost interest pretty quick or weren't allowed to meet. But I've been meeting with the guys this time, and they've been very receptive and open and willing to meet a lot more. So
yeah, when y'all are here, we typically will have, girls will approach girls, and you'll go in groups of two, like when we're at BYU, and guys will go in groups of two, and guys will approach guys, and girls will approach girls, just from some of the other dynamics. It just seems like it's a little bit easier to engage in conversations that way. So yeah, any other questions? Anything about logistics? So I do have I have a letter that that the Glenn, who's our contact at Maven, that he sent me, and then a video that Brett had made, sort of just as an advertisement for the trip. So if you're looking, so the letter would be like a fundraising letter. If you're interested in that, I can maybe I'll email both of those to Ross, for all y'all UNCG students, and then I can email it to you, Ryan. And then if anybody else wants it, if you're trying to raise support, that just maybe that might be helpful for you. When we were coming out here, we for our UNC Wilmington students, we had Kinza, who's our graphic artist, made a binder for us with just a mission trip stuff and some slides, and we would just do these presentations to people and just let them know what we were doing. And all of the students that we brought 15, I think maybe 13 students, and they all either raised their support or were able to, all of them, none of them weren't able to come because of money. So don't let that be a hindrance. If you want to come, but that's a problem for you, get in touch with me, because like I said earlier, one of the things that we're working on is there are some national donors who donate to Ratio nationally, big money donors that want to donate to specific projects. And so one of the things that we're, getting students out here to do apologetics evangelism is something that they might be interested in donating to. So it could be something where we could have some kind of matching, grant or scholarship for y'all. So anyway, so if that is something that is, you're like, I'm in, but the money is what's bothering me. Number one, Tom will probably just pay for all of you because, he just raises so much support. But we've been raising support for 7 years, Tom as well. So talk to me. If you're like, I want to come, but I'm just worried about that, talk to me. I guarantee you we can get you the support raised. That should be the least of your, if that's what's stopping you, then talk to us, because I guarantee we can get your support raised.
Aaron, how can we get in contact with you?
You can, my email is just aaronmarshall@ratiochristi.org. So that's AARONMARSHALL. I'll put it here in the chat. I'll put it here. And then I'll give my phone number as well. I'll give my phone number to everybody but Tom. Yeah, that's and then I'll give you my phone number. If you have questions and you want to talk about any of this stuff, you can call me, you can email me. If you're interested at all, even now, about potentially doing an internship here this summer, like I said, I think I might have mentioned it earlier before people came on, but I'm working with a pastor here who is setting up internships for students all across the country to come out here and intern for a summer with the church. And so if we can get Ratio Christi students involved in that, I think it would be awesome. And so you would have a place to stay, and you would work at a church. Then you would also work with other interns from other churches and get a chance to go across the state and learn a lot during the summer. And then I think at the end, they actually give you a little bit of money. So you wouldn't, you're not going to, I think you would get some money at the end, but they cover at least your lodging and stuff while you're here. We're hoping to get Ratio to be a part of that. We're actually having an intern move out here in the spring, a former UNCW student who's going to move out here. And so he's going to be out here this spring with us. And so he'll be here. He's going to do a lot of video work. So he's going to be able to video the whole trip. And we can hopefully, make a good trailer for it that we can promote. And then, like we said, if you come and you get trained, even if you're a student or a leader, then you can help us lead these trips in the future. So the goal would be that you'd be able to come out here, for years and years in the future.
Okay, quick follow-up question also to that. So about the internship, I missed some important parts. So how do we get more information about the internship? Is it through you, or is there someone else we need to be contacting?
Yeah, just email me and I'll get
Cool.
I'll get you plugged in with his name's Dave Elshog. He was a pastor here at Utah, and then has now working with this ministry to help other ministries get going here in Utah. So email me and then I'll get you hooked up with him. We're going to talk. We're working on that now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds great.
When I have a question, when are we getting those books that we needed to do the beforehand work? The three books, I think it is, when we're getting those?
This book. So this book, and then in the book, it tells you the other 2 books that you'll have to read. So you'll go through this. This will just be, it's just your workbook, and you'll have your workbook when you're here, all kinds of stuff. So this is actually the first edition that Brett and Chad made. They're working on the 2nd edition now. I just talked to Glenn today. So probably what will happen is we will get those the beginning of January, and then whenever then what we'll probably do is then whenever everyone's officially on board, then we will get you that. Or some people we're going to actually have a link, and you can access it online as well. But we'll be like the beginning of January.
Okay, so we'll get those.
You could go ahead and get if you know you're going to come.
Yeah.
You could go. I could put those books in the chat, but I'll put them in the chat as well. Those books that I recommend. I'll put the top 20 books I recommend, and then you guys can figure out from there.
Well, the ones that in the final word that says you got to go read those.
Yeah.
We got to go order those and then do work for it. Okay.
That's the Ambassador Basic Curriculum. That's just a little pamphlet. It's short read that Brett Kunkel wrote. Yeah. And then this book, Witness to Mormons in Love by Chip Daniel Thompson.
Okay. Yeah, I want to get the if you can put those in the chat, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So that I can get those ordered right now. Can I send do I send you a check? How do I
we're figuring that out because since Maven is running the trip.
Okay.
Eventually, so I've got you as a definite. So
yeah.
I think what we're going to try to do is just get everybody, and then we're going to write Maven the check, or get all the checks and send them to Maven. The other thing, just in the future, see, we're going through Maven this year, but in the future, and so a lot of this money is what they charge. In the future, when Ratio does it, the costs are going to be cheaper because all the leaders that we're all Ratio people. So we'll probably be able to cover the cost of the leaders, but we're not trying to make any money off of it. So in the future, when we do these things, I think the costs are going to be, a lot cheaper as well. So we're learning how to run the trip this time, with the goal being in the future we can do these, multiple times a year in March and even in the summer.
Okay, and then Maven will have a little receipt for me.
A receipt, yeah.
Sure. Okay, sweet.
Yeah. You mean, are you talking about so you can expense it?
Well, yeah, I need to. Well, everything's changing in Russia, Christi, so I got to get things and put in places.
Yeah, exactly. So they can give you I don't know, or I guess they give you a receipt that says they won't give you a receipt that it's a donation, but I don't know. We can figure that out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I have a question.
Yes.
What exactly? I like to do numbers and whatnot in my head for the financial parts. So what exactly does the $500 cover?
It would cover your lodging when you're here, your transportation, your food, and then the costs of. So we'll give to stay at the church. You got to pay a little something. For all the speakers that will come in, we'll pay them a little something. So it covers all of those expenses. The only thing you'd have to pay for when you're here would be if we're out somewhere, and when we're at BYU, when we're at the cafeteria, you'll probably pay for your lunch when you're out there.
So it covers room, board, and plane travel, right?
No.
Not plane travel.
So it does not cover the plane ticket.
No.
When you say travel, you're referring to the driving around.
Yeah, because we're going to go down. We're going to go from you're staying a little bit north of Salt Lake City. So we'll go, driving down to the temple, driving down to BYU, all that kind of stuff.
So it's not really 500. It's more like 900 or 1,000.
I've found plane tickets for $250 on Southwest. Depends on how early you get them. You can fly out of Raleigh. Yeah, on Southwest, they have them super cheap. It just depends on when you get them. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Then, go ahead.
All right, and then dang it, the plane travel thing got me messed up with the last question.
Was it about money?
No, it was something else.
You'll remember later.
Probably.
Yeah, so that's why we say because different people. So Jane, who was the regional director in California, she's coming out here, and so her plane ticket was super cheap, and so I don't know what it's going to cost for everybody. So that's why we just say here's the fee, and then you figure out your travel together. If you guys work together, you might be able to get a cheaper. You might even get it cheaper if you went in together with a group.
And then so I remember my second question. You said something about 30 slots. So that's once it hits 30 slots of students or faculty, then that's it. No one else can come because they're out of room, right?
Right, because 30 is the max number that they want to do for this trip. And then so if we hit 30, then we're capped. But then either this summer I mean, if everything goes the way that I pray it will go, then we'll probably try to do one this summer that even if y'all came out, that y'all could help lead, in the summer. And the other thing is if we did this, so next year, if we had a group from, say from UNC Charlotte that want to come, we would just tailor it to your spring break. So the problem this year is, we've got a limited number of schools that have spring break that first week in March. In the future, if y'all wanted to come and you had a small group, if you had 8 of you, that's great. Come on out and we can do a trip because it's just going to be Ratio Christi people doing it. So this is, we're learning how do we do these kind of trips, and we're learning from them. We're getting their materials. They're partnering with us. They want to see these trips happen. And then so we're going to be in the future, we'll be able to use all of their materials, but we'll be able to have Ratio Christi people leading it. So that's why.
Aaron, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you already said this or not, but are we doing anything on campus?
We're definitely going to BYU and doing evangelism there. And then we might be able to, I just have to talk to them but we might be able to do some evangelism at the U or at Weber State. So we've got a Ratio chapter at Weber State in the U, and now we've got one down at UVU, which is right beside BYU, actually bigger than BYU. And every time it's amazing conversations. That university is overwhelmingly LDS. So hopefully we'll be able to do something at one of those other universities. We'll go do something at BYU and then something at, the University of Utah, because you get a different feeling, obviously, from being at BYU than we were there. When you were there, we were it was in the summer, and we did stuff at Weber State, but there weren't enough students there. But even then, it was still good. So hopefully, we'll definitely try to do at least, definitely BYU, but hopefully one of those other campuses as well. What else? And then I'm posted in the chat. So Witness to Mormons in Love. It's the revised edition. That's the one that you want to get. And then the book, the Brett Kunkel book, I'll post that in there as well.
You said it was the Ambassador Basic Curriculum.
Yeah, I just forgot the technical name for it, but it's the Ambassador's Guide to Mormonism, I think is what he calls it.
Okay.
Yeah, the Ambassador's Guide to Mormonism by Brett Kunkel.
Awesome.
So this will be in there. So those are the two books that are required. Those two: Witness to Mormons in Love and the Ambassador's Guide to Mormonism. And then there's lots of other books if you're interested. Like I said, I told you about some, but I can give you books for days on other books if you're interested. Yeah, that's right there. Jaski's got it right there. The Ambassador's Guide for Mormonism. It's small. It's like it's perfect for Jaski. All right. Any other questions, comments?
What was you were talking about some of the people we might hear from, something Lighthouse Ministries. What?
You can, they've got a website, Utah. Their website is straight out of the 80s. So get ready for it, but it's Utah Lighthouse Ministries.
Utah Lighthouse Ministries. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's Sandra and Gerald Tanner. Sandra is BYU's, Brigham Young's great-great-granddaughter who converted to Christianity. She knows probably more about Mormonism as an evangelical than anybody. When Durbin and his group was here filming the documentary on Mormonism, they were interviewing her. That's one of the reasons they came up here for General Conference, interviewed her for that documentary. So she's a wealth of knowledge. Hopefully we'll hear from her, Bill McKeever. At her bookstore, she's got a replica of the golden plates. And you'll see that everything, they're super heavy. Everything that Joseph Smith supposedly did with them, impossible. If we go down to Joseph Smith, you'll actually at the Joseph Smith Museum, we can go to that. You go to that down Temple Square, and you'll see the first vision experience. Now, most of us think that it probably didn't even happen. There's lots of reasons for that, but you go to that first vision experience, it's like he's having a satanic encounter. That's just super weird that they actually show it that way. It's just bizarre. So you'll get to experience all kinds of weirdness down there.
If any of you learn by satire like I do, I recommend Brother Jake on YouTube. He taught me a lot. He's an atheist, so some of his videos I don't really care for, but man, so much information that I put in words to some Mormon missionaries sometimes and tried to point out. Brother Jake, very funny, very funny.
Wesley, is he former LDS?
He definitely is, yeah.
See that again? That's the typical, and then they just become angry, and then they,
Corey Miller actually recommended him to me,
mm-hmm.
and that's why I started with Corey Miller, the president of Russia. Christi, you guys know that.
Yeah.
There's also a really good video. I know Aaron and Tom are familiar with this YouTube channel. It's a very small channel, and they aren't always on Mormonism, but there's a great series of videos by Lutheran satire on Mormonism. It kind of confronts them. It's hilarious, but it also is very much going to kind of give about the idea, especially of grace, because that is a key major issue that's really going to serve as a linchpin that with the comedy you can kind of understand as well. So that's also a very good YouTube channel to check out those couple of videos.
Yeah, if you guys are interested, there's a guy. His name's Kwaku L. He's a guy who converted to Mormonism, and he has a YouTube channel, a podcast or YouTube video podcast / show called Saints Unscripted. It used to be called Three Mormons that he did, and now he does some of his own stuff. He's actually pretty liberal, and they call him neo-Mormon because his views are pretty out there. But he's a good, he's very, just very defensive, quote unquote, of the LDS, and so he has an argument for all of their positions. So it'd be good to listen to some of his stuff, and we got to meet him when we were here, and I'm actually hoping to do some podcasts with him coming up. But just a good way to understand how they've got answers to all the things that we'll throw at them. So that's a good thing to watch.
I also saw where there's an upcoming theologian there with a podcast called The Present Day Saint.
Oh yeah,
out there. That's a really good one to learn some.
That's my podcast that I just started. But we've got 3 episodes, and man, those episodes are good.
But I'm really looking forward to listening to it.
Yeah, Tom listens to it at nighttime, so I go to sleep, which for him is like 5:30. So
yeah,
the Present Day Saint.
Yeah, the Present Day Saint. I just started it, but we'll just talk about some of doing ministry out here. What's that?
What platforms are you
on? MySpace, AOL.com. We are on. It's about to be approved on Apple, but I think right now it's on Spotify.
Cool.
Yeah,
cool.
It's just on Spotify now, and then it's getting on all because I just launched it the other day, so it'll be approved on Apple in the next week or so.
Awesome.
But Present Day Saint, obviously playing off the idea of Latter-day Saints, and we are, we believe we are saints now. We don't become saints. We certainly don't become God. Yeah, and so hopefully on that, obviously self-promotion, but we're going to try to have I'll try to do a lot of interviews with evangelicals out here, to people that are there's a guy that I'll introduce y'all to when you're out here who goes down to Temple Square every Thursday night, Aaron Shavalahoff. He has a chapter in that book, and one of the cool things about being out here, and then I know you're probably tired of listening to me, but one of the really cool things about being out here is there's so few Christians that we recognize that we disagree on lots of things, theologically probably, but we are united in the gospel, right? That we are the true gospel. And so it's really cool is there are a lot of people that we'll work with that probably back home it would have been easy to just divide over because we disagree on some of these secondary issues that I think are super important. So that's been really cool. So there's just a small network of evangelicals that are really, you're excited about the gospel, and you're certainly not Christian just because you grew up that way here. You're a Christian because you think it's true. And so you'll meet some really neat people who are just sold out for the gospel and just want to share the good news with other people. And so I'll try to introduce you all to people when you're out here who have been out here for a long time and have been praying for people like y'all to come out here. And so it was really cool when we came out here, when people were saying, 30 years ago, there was no Christian presence whatsoever. And now it's starting to happen. They're starting to see people come to faith. And so you guys can be part of, what God's been doing to bring the gospel out here, and think about, what God can do with that you know, in the next 5-10 years. And so they're excited. A lot of people are excited for Ratio to get a place out here, especially on the campuses. So good. All right. Well, if you have any other questions, or if you have, you know, so my email's there, my phone number's there. Yeah, definitely 2 to 4 a.m. Central Standard Time. That's when my phone is forwarded to Tom's. So call me, you know, whenever you want. But if you have questions, or if, you know, if someone's watching this and they didn't get a chance, then email me. Don't let money be an object, please. If you want to come, but you know, you don't know how, we can teach you how to raise support for this. I promise you. And like I said, if all else fails, then Wesley will just pay for your trip out here. So, all right. Any other, you know, questions or comments? Email me. I don't know. Tom, you want to just pray for us real quick, and then we can shut it down?
Yeah, sure. Father, we are grateful for the calling that you have given us, that you've opened our eyes to the truth of the gospel, Lord. We realize we're not any smarter than the Mormon people. We don't have any greater intellect than they do, God. You just graciously have chosen to open our eyes to the gospel. And God, just as you've reconciled us to yourself, we pray that you can use us to help reconcile the LDS people to you as well. So we pray for this trip. We pray for all those who are planning it, that you'll give them wisdom. We pray for all those that would like to go, that you would make a way for them to go. And we pray that you would just sovereignly build this team, and that you would use us in March to be able to share the gospel faithfully, to put a stone in people's shoe, to be used by the Spirit, to be able to open people's eyes and to share truth, God. And we pray right now that the people that we will be sharing with in March, that you'll be preparing their hearts to receive the truth. And we look forward to everything that you're going to do through this trip, and through Aaron, and through all the ministries that are out there working. And we pray this all in the name of Jesus. Amen.
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 Well, good. All right. Well, if anybody has any other questions, I'll hang out. Ross, thanks for making an appearance right at the end. Perfect timing. If anybody
Thanks,
has any
Aaron,
questions,
for
I'll
everything.
hang
Thanks,
out.
Tom.
Yeah. But otherwise, then we'll hopefully see every one of you out here March 1st.
Good night, everybody.
Awesome.
Good night.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We'll play Six
Thank
Truths
you.
and a Lie
Thank you
later.
very much.
See you in March.
So, Aaron, could you talk a little bit more about the internship? Like, I'm pretty interested in that.
So what you've got some more interest in this beyond just this, I can tell.
Yeah. I've actually
I'm
got
gonna stop recording now. So